Well, good evening and welcome to Queer News Tonight, the world's first and only LGBTQ+ daily evening news. It's time to queer up the news. It is 8 p.m. Tuesday, May 24th, 2022, and we are literally out of the closet and into the headlines. So many of your important stories we're going to tell this evening on Queer News Tonight.
This is the world's first live daily LGBTQ evening news show, literally out of the closet and into the headlines on Queer News Tonight with Al Ferguson.
Good evening, world, and thank you for joining Queer News Tonight. This is the world's first and only unedited live LGBTQ+ evening news show. Whatever happens, you will see it. Queer News Tonight is supported by viewers like you. We are part of the partnership between Happening Out Television Network and Hot Spots Magazine. Hot Spots is celebrating 36 years of the LGBTQ+ experience. We bring you the best of LGBTQ+ news, entertainment, and support of our community.
I'm your anchor at Queer News Tonight, Al Ferguson. Let's welcome first anchor John Hayden. John's been a journalist for 27 years and now works for several South Florida outlets, including South Florida Gay News, covering arts, politics, and philanthropic organizations. He's spent the majority of his career covering the stupidity of scandals in Hollywood and has interviewed nearly every big name in television, movies, and music. Good evening, John.
Good evening, Al. Unfortunately, another thing that I've covered often, from Aurora to Sandy Hook to Virginia Tech and more, are school shootings. Another one went down today, and as we do this show, the details are still coming in. But the fact is, young children were once again targeted by a vicious gunman who is empowered by uncontrolled gun laws. If someone tells you they're pro-life, but they vote for candidates that support the NRA, then they're not pro-life. They support a culture of death, and I hope that you will call them out on it. And as we move on, we also welcome anchor Sobourney Barnes, a true South Florida native, born and raised in Broward County to parents who found joy in public service. A graduate of Florida Atlantic University and Florida International University, Sobourney has been an advocate for the LGBTQIA+ youth for almost a decade. Welcome, Sobourney.
Thank you, and I did not know that, so thank you for bringing that to my attention. That is extremely upsetting, especially because this is young people who are being hurt, and we all remember what happened here in South Florida with Marjorie Stoneman Douglas, and I know exactly how that impacted the young people in my life, so thank you for saying that. So just wanted to add that before, of course, welcoming anchor Glen Weinzimer. Glen is the founder of the Smart Ride, an annual 2-day, 165-mile bike ride from Miami to Key West. The Smart Ride has raised and returned over $13.9 million to AIDS and HIV service organizations across Florida in the last 18 years. What makes Smart Ride unique is that 100% of every dollar raised by its participants are guaranteed to go back to direct services, education, and care. Glen also owns Bona Italian Restaurant in Wilton Manors with the garlic knots. Bona Italian holds weekly Give Back Mondays with 10% of all proceeds returned to local charities. In the past 4.5 years, Bona has raised almost $50,000 to help local organizations. Welcome, Glen.
Thank you, Sobourney. And just before we came on the air, I was listening to the news in the car, and I think they've confirmed 14 youth dead in that shooting today. And it was by an 18-year-old is what they've got in custody right now. So it's just horrific.
Breaks your heart.
Yeah. Let's welcome anchor Gregg Shapiro, an inductee into the Chicago LGBT Hall of Fame. Gregg is the author of 8 books, including his latest, Fear of Muses, an entertainment journalist whose celebrity interviews and music reviews run in a variety of regional LGBTQ+ and mainstream publications and websites. His movie review column called Screen Savor can be found in South Florida Gay News, San Francisco Bay's Area Reporter, RottenTomatoes.com, and more. Good evening, Gregg.
Good evening, and happy birthday to gay filmmaker, TV creator Greg Berlanti, the man behind the Broken Hearts Club, Brothers and Sisters, and the DC Multiverse on the CW.
Brothers and Sisters.
Great show. Yeah. We are the reporters for Queer News Tonight, and this evening we begin with the queer headlines. The LGBTQ plus community in South Florida and across America is diverse. Our community across the world is vast. And here are the bullet points of the Queer News for today, Tuesday, May 14th. Today is Pansexual and Panromantic Awareness Day.
Well, let's begin the broadcast by queering up the road to Stonewall. Florida's Nadine Smith and the 8 LGBTQ plus trailblazers making Time Magazine's 100 most influential people. Today, Time Magazine released their list of the 100 most influential people of 2022, including at least 8 LGBTQ plus individuals who are artists, innovators, leaders, icons, and pioneers in different fields. Noteworthy to the Florida LGBTQ plus community is the selection of Nadine Smith, the Executive Director of Equality Florida, the state's largest organization dedicated to ending discrimination based on sexual orientation and gender identity. Nadine came to national prominence as she was one of the 4 national co-chairs of the historic 1993 National March on Washington. Nadine represents our nonprofit 501c3 educational mission here at the Happening Out Television Network and Queer News Tonight, as she is a former award-winning journalist. She has written syndicated columns for various gay and mainstream publications, and Smith was an award-winning investigative journalist for WUSF, the National Public Radio affiliate in Tampa, and later became a reporter for the Tampa Tribune. In 1993, Smith was part of the historic Oval Office meeting between then incumbent President of the United States, Bill Clinton, and LGBT social movement leaders. Smith attended the U.S. Air Force Academy after graduating high school in Panama City. She left after the passage of Don't Ask, Don't Tell in 1993. In 1997, she helped form Equality Florida, an LGBTQ plus civil rights organization that would literally be the model to the nation and become one of the largest queer advocacy organizations in the world. In 2007, Smith was arrested at a Largo City Council meeting after handing someone a flyer that had the words, "Don't discriminate," printed on it. The council was debating whether or not to fire Susan Stanton. The city manager had transitioned from male to female. The charges were later dropped, and the police chief and the city commission issued official apologies. In 2010, Smith brought Florida's anti-gay adoption law that bans any gay person from adopting to the attention of President Obama. During a White House event, she presented the president with a picture of 2 boys the state of Florida was trying to block from being adopted by the gay man who had been their foster father for more than 5 years. And of course, this year, Time Magazine takes special note of the international fight Florida has faced with Governor Ron DeSantis and the conservative members of the GOP over Don't Say Gay bills and more. Nadine Smith has been front and center in this fight and a literal voice from Florida to the entire world.
Nadine Smith was among 8 LGBTQ plus representatives awarded the impressive Time 100. LGBTQ plus Time 100 recipient Emmett Schelling is another. This transgender activist is Executive Director of Transgender Education Network of Texas. Schelling, like Nadine Smith, is at the heart of fighting and protecting rights of the transgender, especially young transgender people and their families in transphobic Texas.
The next recipient we have for the LGBTQ plus Time 100, Apple CEO Tim Cook. When Cook took over for the company's former CEO, Steve Jobs, in 2011, many wondered how Time would judge the LGBTQ plus business leader. Results speak for themselves, as under his leadership, Apple becomes the world's first $1 trillion company in the U.S. He has also been at the forefront of business advocacy for the LGBTQ plus issues of importance.
LGBTQ plus Time 100 recipient is Michael R. Jackson. This Pulitzer Prize winning playwright is a Broadway powerhouse, now cemented by the stage musical A Strange Loop. His musical just snagged 11 2022 Tony Award nominations, including the first ever for a transgender actress.
LGBTQ plus Time 100 recipient Megan Rapinoe, the GOAT of women's soccer, has won every major competition and award for her sport. Perhaps even more notable, Rapinoe has been central to the near decade-long fight over gender inequality in sports and was at the heart of this month's historic agreement of equal pay for the men's and women's national soccer teams.
LGBTQ plus Time 100 recipient Ariana DeBose. This queer-identified musical theater actor impressed film audiences in Steven Spielberg's adaptation of West Side Story. Her role earned her the Oscar, and her acceptance speech specifically challenged why out queer identity was so important in the world we are living.
LGBTQ plus Time 100 recipient Demna Zavalia. This fashion designer and creative director of the high-end fashion brand Balenciaga. The gay Eastern European has advocated for LGBTQ plus rights and is central to subverting the high fashion status quo in all of our lives.
LGBTQ plus Time 100 recipient Kirsten Sinema. While Sinema rarely mentions her bisexuality ever since becoming a U.S. Senator from Arizona, she aggravates the LGBTQ plus community, becoming notorious for helping sabotage Democratic President Joe Biden's progressive agenda. Her approval rating is higher among state Republicans than Democrats, and she is up for re-election in 2024. We congratulate all of the LGBTQ plus representatives that made Times 100. But we thought we would take one more moment to show you the incredible history of Florida's recipient in her own, I'll even say, historic words.
Nadine Smith said, quote, "They don't ask, we don't tell, and rarely are they required to see with their own eyes the deep harm and real pain inflicted by laws that tell us we are less than our neighbors," end quote.
Nadine Smith said, quote, "George W. Bush and Al Gore shouldn't be talking about who's going to blink first. They should be talking about how we are going to restore faith in democracy in the American people, because it's been sorely tested right now," end quote.
Nadine Smith says, quote, "When fair-minded Floridians come to understand just how harmful this initiative is to so many Florida families, they will reject this amendment. Laws should not make it harder to take care of the people you love," end quote.
Nadine Smith said, quote, "As a child, I was told that Rosa Parks was tired and fed up one fateful day and decided right then and there that she would not give up her seat. I was impressed by her courage. Later, when I learned that her protest had been contemplated at length with the consequences fully measured, I was inspired even more deeply by her willingness to intentionally sacrifice her freedom and safety to make the country confront the ugliness of Jim Crow," end quote.
And Nadine Smith said, very appropriate for today, quote, "We march, we lobby, we educate, we protest, and we should and we must. But it seems increasingly clear to me that we must now do what civil rights movements have always done, with forethought and to place ourselves visibly at odds with an unjust law to provoke the consequences that can prick the conscience of our country. Every civil rights struggle in this country has required people to sacrifice and make institutionalized discrimination so visible no one can avert their eyes. People stepped forward knowing they could lose their homes, lose their jobs, their safety. They walked willingly toward hateful mobs and police. They sacrificed, and the country watched and changed. Every civil rights struggle in this country has required people to sacrifice. The country is watching. Are we ready to do the same?" Time 100.
Yes, which is impressive. And Nadine Smith, I think everyone here has met her, is just a remarkable woman that has led a way and is just says something for all of us to look up to. The things that she's accomplished in her life is definitely a trailblazer.
And how incredible to have Florida, especially at this difficult time, represented on this list. Someone from Florida and our situation, I think, is very powerful as well.
She is omnipresent in our community. I mean, and conflating her with Equality Florida, they are just everywhere trying to put out every single fire while also still keeping their eyes on the big picture. She constantly is working to find new roads and new paths forward in the face of political intransigence. And it's to be admired, and I admire her, and I love her.
It's amazing, and I love how just the backgrounds of every single one of the LGBT individuals, even Kristen Sinema, is so diverse, and the fact that, except for her, they have used their platforms to actually uplift the community. Sometimes you have folks who, they have the platform, but they don't say anything to uplift their community. So brava, and I am honestly so proud that I even had the time to just meet Miss Smith like once.
You know, our press partners at Out magazine do the Out 100, and it's very, very important. It's a credentialed list, unlike any other in the LGBTQ community. But Times 100 is different. Times 100 reflects, regardless of your orientation, your race, your religion, your creed. Here are the 100, in Time Magazine's opinion, of the most important movers and shakers, principally American. For Nadine to make this list, I think is just a dramatic statement from Time Magazine. And the reason it's a dramatic statement is, for all intents and purposes so far in 2022, we lost the battle in Florida. We did. It's not like gay marriage. It's not like adoption. We lost, don't say gay. We lost to a Ron DeSantis and a conservative political structure in Florida. And Time Magazine says, but still, this person, in leading the opposition, even in potential loss, is incredibly important to America. And I think that is fantastic. And it just means we're going to fight another day. And I'm sure that's what Nadine Smith in Equality Florida is going to do. This fight is not over, which is what Time Magazine is saying. And then broadly also, I just want to make special note that having the Time 100 have 8 LGBT on this list, this is not a fad embracement of endorsement. The most popular performer in America. DuBose makes this list not only because of what she did with West Side Story and what's happening with her career, but she brought everybody to a stop at the Oscars. Everybody, after the slap heard around the world, still she was, and America was talking about her acceptance speech and why her coming out and being so visible was important, and that's why Time recognizes. So these 8 individuals for Time, incredibly important for our community, and we're very proud of the number included, but we're especially proud of Florida's Nadine Smith.
Yes, we are.
Congratulations to all.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. And move on and queer up health. Monkeypox is in gay South Florida, and UNAIDS calls out homophobic coverage against LGBTQ+. Broward County has now diagnosed 2 cases of monkeypox. The World Health Organization is reporting that the LGBTQ+ community, and specifically gay and bisexual men, are being shown to be an above average number of worldwide cases. The second presumptive case was confirmed today. The CDC is now investigating, and normally confined to West Africa, outbreaks of the disease have been identified in the last couple of weeks in 11 countries. The Department of Health in Broward County stressed the infection risk was much lower than a virus such as COVID-19. Broward DOH says, quote, human-to-human transmission of monkeypox generally requires prolonged face-to-face contact, direct contact with lesion materials, or indirect contact with lesion materials through contaminated items such as clothing or bed linens. Therefore, the risk of exposure remains low, end quote. Early symptoms include fever, headache, muscle aches, backache, swollen lymph nodes, chills, and exhaustion. It will often be accompanied by a chickenpox-like rash. The United Nations AIDS Agency, UNAIDS, spoke out against homophobic and racist coverage of the recent outbreak of monkeypox in the UK and the US. The UNAIDS official statement says, quote, lessons from the AIDS response show that stigma and blame are directed at certain groups of people can rapidly undermine outbreak response, end quote. Multiple news outlets have reported on the outbreak by specifying the gender and sexuality of patients and highlighting that queer men were the first victims. Outlets, including the Associated Press, reported on 2 events, one in Spain, the other in Belgium, that are considered super spreaders. including a pride event at in the Canary Islands, and at a gay sauna near Madrid. UNAIDS deputy editor Matthew Cavanaugh pointed out the similarities between homophobic coverage of monkeypox and news coverage around the AIDS epidemic, saying, quote, "Monkeypox is not a gay disease, and neither are any other infectious diseases. It is unfortunate that this still needs to be said, highlighting how little we have learned from previous outbreaks," end quote.
Well, and as a gay man of a certain age, it is frighteningly reminiscent.
Yeah.
They're beginning to pin this on. It's just terrifying, and hopefully this will not.
Actually, for me, the consequences of the insinuation is much more painful than what's actually going on with the disease. We're talking about a fraction of the number of people in Europe, anywhere else, these 11 countries. But the homophobic response that UNAIDS points out, oh my goodness, it's like a wave washing over you again.
Right.
You know, I'm reporting on this for South Florida Gay News, which will be out on Thursday, but I've read about the how this is different than some other monkeypox viruses. Often the rash shows up later. This time it's showing up first. Symptoms are often very confused with other STIs and things like that. So if it's hitting our community, then I would rather err on the side of caution. I don't want to stigmatize anyone, but like imagine if it happens and we didn't perk our ears up, because we've already had the gay or LGBT meningitis outbreak a couple of months ago. I mean, it's just seemingly never ending for health crises this year.
I think it's very important to remember that the vaccine that basically has almost completely eradicated chickenpox is highly effective.
I'm sorry, smallpox.
Or smallpox, yes.
Yes.
Thank you, of smallpox. Thanks for the correction. And so there is a highly effective treatment, and I agree with the caution. But I think one of the issues is, one of the reporting that is going on is the concerns. Even President Biden has commented on it today in Japan about the comparisons to the possibility of pandemic as it related to like COVID-19. They are not related in any possible way. This is not the same kind of situation as COVID-19. So it's very important we do this story tonight to make sure that we begin to have robust conversation about what's going on.
And I think having the education out there that there is a vaccine that is highly effective on this should make this less of a story, because you can go to your doctor and get it taken care of. It should not be compared to HIV and AIDS and start that stigma again against our community. I mean, having been someone who had gotten AIDS during the height of the pandemic, and now we look at it 40 years later, and it is not isolated to just the LGBTQ community. It's affecting disproportionately minorities because of stigma and other issues, but it is not a gay disease. And to try to do what you were saying, and I appreciate where you came from, John, but like I just find it outrageous that they would try to stigmatize this and say blame it on us because we're the ones spreading it, and that's just the part that bothers me.
And I just want to make a note to your vaccine comment. There are 2 licensed vaccines for monkeypox in the United States. Now, people who are 50 and younger may not have had a smallpox vaccine, which makes them more susceptible. But of one of the vaccines, the most common one, there's only, I think, 2,000 doses, and it's a 2-dose regimen. So there's only enough vaccine for 1,000 people in the United States. So you can't just go to your doctor and get it. The second vaccine has severe, harsh side effects, and they're not going to be releasing that until it becomes a bigger problem, and then they will reevaluate. So this isn't like the meningitis a couple months ago where you can just go and get a thing. So I don't want people starting to call their doctors tomorrow and try and get it.
Right.
This is probably not going to become a big thing, but if it does, we could be in very big trouble.
Exactly. It's just like you were saying earlier, Glenn, it's education at the end of the day is what needs to be done. And that's what we here at this table are doing, educating the folks who are watching this so they know what to look out for and to be able to keep themselves and their families safe.
We don't want another toilet paper issue.
We don't need
enough because everyone's hoarding it.
I'm well stuck.
But we are going to continue and queer up education. Nearly half of Republicans believe teachers could influence children's sexual orientation or gender identity. Conservatives have spent the last several months denouncing LGBTQ teachers as groomers and pedophiles, with right-wing pundits often saying that they believe that talking to children about LGBTQ issues can turn kids gay. It turns out that a large number of Republicans believe that teachers can actually make children turn queer. A new Morning Consult poll showed 40% of Republican adults said that they believe teachers can influence students' sexual and gender identity. The survey also found that 31% of Republican parents are uncomfortable with LGBTQ people working with their kids. In contrast, 84% of Democratic parents said that they were comfortable with LGBTQ people working with their kids. The survey further found 6 out of every 10 Republican parents said that they oppose lessons about the LGBTQ civil rights movement in schools and oppose lessons about sexual orientation and gender identity. Democratic parents' opposition was just 2 out of 10. I'm just gonna be the first to say it, purely ridiculous of Republican parents to believe that, but
I have to say, they said that teachers can turn kids gay.
exactly.
They're not saying is that teachers can allow a person who's questioning their gender identity to come out and maybe have a safe place to speak about it if they can't at home, and potentially avoid suicides, where if you can't talk to somebody and you don't feel like you're in a safe environment, children could things could turn horribly wrong. So to say that they're turning them gay, maybe opening up a dialogue for conversation to find out that how you feel is normal is more important than them turning them gay.
Yeah, what they're really afraid of is children to see gay people living their best lives.
Right.
Being open, and because the choice isn't to be gay. The choice is to how you're going to live your life. But this is just a part of a broad disinformation campaign it's just, they're literally pulling the same playbook or page out of the playbook for every single possible social issue as part of a broader strategy that they've been doing for well over a year.
How do we prevent children from becoming Republican or conservative?
Yeah,
That's a good question.
Let's talk about it a lot. That's a good point. But John, the point is it's working.
Yes.
The survey is showing that DeSantis and radical conservative GOP, and I use both radical conservative GOP because all 3 words should be used independently. GOP does not mean radical conservative, but radical conservative GOP and DeSantis are successful. And they have been successful in this last year, and that's what the survey is showing, that they're reformulating a decision-making paradigm that goes, you can do something as ridiculous of say gay and you become gay. Now, that's ridiculous because, believe me, I went through most of my young adult life where I wish somebody would have said say straight over and over and over again, and I could have chosen to be straight. It's not possible. And that's the ridiculousness here. The survey also represents, it's just blatant homophobia.
There it is.
It's
right
just
there.
blatant homophobia. And the proof of that in when you see studies and surveys like this is take the exact same questioning to come to the conclusion that you come to and take gay out of the definitional word and insert black or race, or take gay out and insert Jewish or Muslim. And you would find similar kinds of conclusions. That is racism, that is homophobia, that is a zealot mentality of xenophobia. And that's what this survey demonstrates, that 4 to 6 out of every 10 people that identify in this class say, yes, this is what happens, and they would probably and likely say the exact same thing about Black, Jewish, Muslim, or other marginalized minority groups. And this survey is important for us to learn it, to make sure that we're aware that this is going on. This is the enemy we face. They are not going away. They're not.
They're not. All right. Next up, education. Lee University considering limiting student speech as don't say gay. A private Christian university is considering strictly limiting the free speech rights of its students when it comes to sexuality and gender, from how they behave to what they wear and what they can say on campus or even online. According to published reports, If approved, the policy presented to faculty and staff at Lee University in Cleveland, Tennessee, would not allow students to identify as anything other than their biological sex. They also would, according to a spokesman, Kendra Mann, she released a statement saying the policy has been in the works for years and is in line with long-standing theological beliefs. The school, which gets its funding in part from the Church of God, had planned to get more feedback before publishing its statement of beliefs concerning human sexuality and gender ahead of the fall semester. The draft policy declares that biological sex is binary and says, quote, humans do not have the ability or observed right to choose a gender. No member of the Lee University community may publicly identify or behave as a gender that does not correspond to his or her biological sex. No member of the Lee University community may promote or advocate in person, in writing, or online for sexual acts, behaviors, or lifestyles that are contrary to the scripture. This statement of belief or any other university policy. The policy also forbids sex between unmarried heterosexuals. Wow.
Just no. I love how certain groups that are against other groups like to start using they like to start infringing on rights, specifically freedom of speech, because at the end of the day, if you're not allowed to say something, you're not allowed to get that information out there in some way, shape, or form, then yes, you're going to lose out on something. But if the same thing happened to them, that those rights were infringed upon about them, totally different, and they'd be upset. And I'm sure that any LGBT individuals who attend this school are definitely going to be upset learning this if they aren't already.
And they go back in the closet out of fear.
Right.
But that is the question. I mean, if you already know that this is a conservative, so-called Christian university in Cleveland, Tennessee, if you know this going in, it really makes me wonder, if you were gay or questioning, would you even apply to a school like this? Would you want to attend this?
They
But
definitely have LGBT students at the university.
Yeah.
I've read comments from LGBT students.
And are students leaving? Are they in?
They might be, but it's also
enrolling in
about
other
their
other
religion.
places?
It comes to that aspect. Like, some people are so tied to their religion or one specific aspect of their identity. For example, all of my siblings went to HBCUs. I didn't. And that's because they felt very strongly in wanting to go there. But I didn't care. On the reverse side, I didn't want to go to a Christian school or anything like that, even though I was raised that way. I don't want to judge them, but I also ask that question of why not go somewhere else?
Right.
I'll judge them. I'd like to set the scene. This is East Tennessee, very Republican. It's outside of Chattanooga. It's, like I said, deeply red. I went on to Lee University's website today. Their picture at the top of their homepage is like something out of the 1950s or 60s. Like, you can tell it is, no, I'm not like saying it's like something. No, it's an actual picture from the 50s or 60s. All white people, all very, we're conservative and all this. And I watched a video. They did a 90-minute documentary on the history of their, and so I just sort of skipped through, but I stopped around the 60s. They admitted their first black female student by accident, because students who were applying had to attach a photo, and she looked light-skinned. That's how they got their first black female student, and that didn't come until the 1960s. So this is a place that is not particularly progressive. We should have all known that. But I encourage you, if you want to, take a look at their history, because it ain't pretty.
But also,
sorry, go ahead. You
also, some of these kids don't have a choice. Their parents choose the school for them. They give them the education that they want them to have. They send them to the church they want them to pray to. And so they're trapped in many cases in these situations they can't get themselves out of. So, you're fortunate you could choose a school that you wanted to go to as opposed to your brothers and sisters. But, not everyone has that option, especially in Tennessee.
I think a couple of thoughts. First, can Lee University do this? It's been brought up several times. They absolutely can. They absolutely can.
Right.
Because it's private.
And it won't, because it's a private Christian school. And in the environment that we are currently in with the Supreme Court, if this gets to the Supreme Court, a majority decision is going to support Lee and being able to do it. So it's pointless to talk about whether it's right or wrong. Really, the first question is, can they do it? And the answer is yes. The more important question for me is, will this policy succeed? As draconian of a policy as this is, will it succeed? And the answer is they absolutely can do this, but it will absolutely fail. Because they can enforce it today, it'll be a little harder to enforce it next week. It'll be a little harder to enforce it next month. It will be incredibly hard to enforce next year. And the reason is you can't keep your finger in the lack of progress of the Dyke little Dutch boy forever. You can't do it. You can't hold people back forever. The Nazis have tried it. The Roman Empire tried it. It can't be done forever. So Lee University is a ticking time bomb of being obsoleted into the oblivion of stupid ideas. And that's what the future holds for Lee University. And then my last thought is to the exact point that John makes, but I want to add a fine point to the ignorance of this. Again, my standard of your decision making of why you would issue a memorandum like this that we've been considering for years. Well, let's take gay and sexual identity out of it and insert, just as John said, black into it, or Jewish into it, or Muslim into it. They would come to the exact same conversation. And you know who did the exact same thing? It was a governor in Alabama called George McGovern. And he stood on the steps and said, I don't care what the Supreme Court says. Black children are not coming into my schools. And he lost, because he can't hold the finger back in the dike of progress. Now, they may succeed today, but that Supreme Court will turn over, and we'll return back to a Bill of Rights that is enforceable. Lee University's time of existence is now on a countdown clock, in my opinion.
We can all hope for that, but next it is time to report on our partnership with Sunshine Cathedral, the world's largest queer church here in Fort Lauderdale. We're broadcasting from our permanent set here at Sunshine in supporting that partnership. Happening Out Television Network broadcasts the largest LGBTQ+ religious live broadcast in the world, as more than 30,000 watch every Sunday at 10:30 a.m. Eastern. Watch this.
Hi, I'm Athena Dion, drag performer known from performing on South Beach and in Mykonos, and Sunshine Cathedral is my queer church.
Love Athena. Well, we now finish tonight's Queer News headlines with a segment that we call LGBTQ+ Flash News.
LGBTQ+ Flash News. Religious conservatives claim RuPaul dolls are indoctrinating children to become queer. The toy company Fisher-Price recently released 3 Little People figurines of RuPaul, the iconic drag ambassador whose drag race reality show has launched several international versions. The anti-LGBTQ organization 1 Million Moms is leading outrage campaigns against the doll because the existence of a doll of the black drag queen will, quote, indoctrinate children into transgenderism and homosexuality, end quote. Their call for boycott added, quote, Fisher-Price is choosing to push an agenda of sexual confusion instead of promoting its actual product. This PC-inclusive toy set blurs the biological distinctions between males and females. Introducing children to this lifestyle choice is contrary to what conservative Christian parents are teaching their children about God's design. The dolls promote cross-dressing and glorify the drag queen lifestyle, forcing an LGBTQ agenda on extremely young audiences, brainwashing our preschoolers and elementary-age children, confusing our innocent children by attempting to destroy very definitive gender lines and glamorizing a sinful lifestyle, end quote. A Fisher-Price response to 1 Million Moms said, quote, "The figure pack honors RuPaul's efforts to inspire young people, old, to be true to themselves," end quote. 1 Million Moms' hysteria over the doll is hardly surprising. The rabidly LGBTQ group, anti-LGBT group, has a habit of throwing a fit anytime any company anywhere publicly acknowledges the existence of queer people. 1 Million Moms sashay away.
Why does it have to be about little people?
You know, this is not true. Last year, I went on to 1 Million Moms website to help support them, and they sell a Ted Cruz doll lying on the beach in Cancun, and it's really cool. You pull a string, and Senator Ted Cruz says, "Let them eat cake."
Oh.
Now, as long as I've had that doll, it did nothing to make me straight, so I know that this is not true. Don't worry.
That was one sentence.
Yeah, that was one sentence. That was one very long sentence. But you know what? I say it every single time to people. If you don't like it, don't buy it. The folks with 1 Million Moms, you don't have to buy it for your kid, so why do you care? Buy something else.
According to 1 Million Moms, everything makes kids gay, and everything makes Jesus cry. Piss off. LGBTQ plus flash news. 2022 Converse Pride Collection celebrates the found family. For the 7th year in a row, Converse is dropping its always highly anticipated Pride Collection. And this year, they're doing things big by celebrating the found family. Just in time for Pride season, the beloved classic shoe brand is launching a project that they call the Found Family Campaign, which is a vibrant series of original art, images, film, and stories from more than 50 contributors to celebrate the dynamic LGBTQIA+ community. The project, which just launched, sees the brand teaming up with a handful of LGBTQ+ folks from Converse's all-star community. That's the brand's global network of young creatives. Why didn't they call me? Including Allie, Becky, Ileana, Jazz, Thomas, Reagan, and more, as well as the Converse Cons skateboarding team rider, Brianna. A Converse spokesperson says, quote, "The queer all-stars shared their stories on the importance of home, family, and support, and how their found families built them up with love and joy along the way, ranging from middle school friends to fellow skateboarders and designers." End quote. And if the shoe fits, flaunt it.
And tonight I'm wearing my Converse ruby slippers.
Oh my God.
Oh, look at you.
Hold
Put them
off
back
the
on.
whole
Shoes back on, dude. Come on.
That's just rude. I thought the
think
found
we're-
family is what we do at Thanksgiving.
Family. You know, I love the Converse campaign. We're going to talk over the next 4 weeks. We're going to talk about commercialism endlessly. You've got to love an entrepreneurial brand like Converse that makes a commitment to the LGBTQ community and says the found family is recognizing that often we're rejected in our own families, and you find one, and that's what they're celebrating, which is wonderful.
You guys know how I feel about corporations and them pandering to certain communities. So you know I'm like, but also, unlike 1 Million Moms, I'm gonna buy the shoes because I support our community, and I do love that they are having LGBT individuals be a part of the designing, and it's telling a story about our community. That I can support. So take my money, Converse. I can't wait. But continuing with our LGBTQ plus / news, Real Housewives of Miami's Julia Lemigova, I'm so sorry, ma'am, talks about queer South Florida. Julia Lemigova made history late last year when she became the first out full-time cast member of Bravo's Real Housewives franchise. The model, actress, beauty entrepreneur, and former beauty queen, she was named Miss USSR in 1990, has called many places home: Moscow, Paris, London, and now Miami. Married to tennis icon Martina Navratilova, with whom she's raising 2 daughters and many chickens and goats on their Florida farm. Lemigova told us about some of her favorite spots in South Florida. First is the Wynwood Arts District, the growing LGBTQ district that will host Wynwood Pride next month. The Coconut Grove Organic Farmers Market, an amazing place to shop with its variety of organic fresh fruits and vegetables. Her secret spot for Japanese cuisine is Marumi Sushi in Plantation, which, guys, it's delicious. I've been there. Very large spread. It is not that far from Miami, and it is very, very well worth the trip. The Real Housewife also loves the Bazaar Project, a unique gift shop located in the heart of Coconut Grove. Julia says Doma is one of her favorite Italian restaurants. It is a neighborhood restaurant located in the beautiful Wynwood Arts District, featuring Mediterranean-inspired Southern Italian cuisine. Finally, she draws attention to the Cauley Square Historic Village, a historic tree-lined railroad town established in 1903. Today, this charming village offers antique shops, a beauty spa, scented apothecary, restaurants, and a tea room, all nestled among large trees and tropical foliage. It's a relaxing spot to get away from the hustle and bustle of the city. Well, with all those little trip ups that I made, I'm honestly very much thinking about making a trip up to that little village that she went to. I think it's amazing that she has so many places you can go to. As a Florida native, I admit I don't explore that often. So she just gave me a bucket list of things to do. So thank you.
Yeah, my favorite spot in Miami-Dade County is right along I-95, where a sign says, "You are now leaving Miami-Dade County. Welcome to Broward."
Wow.
Ugh, all the Dade hate, but I feel you because I don't like
Ouchie, ouch. I had the pleasure of interviewing Julia for SFGN's magazine, The Mirror, and she truly is a delight, and we're lucky to have her.
None of her spots are that secret anymore because she's just told everyone. So if you want to try to find her, don't go to any of her secret spots because you can be sure there'll be new ones next year.
Good.
I love the recommendation she gave. I'm a little still verklempt because production is telling me that Dan Rios from the Miami Convention and Visitors Bureau is on the phone and would like to talk to John Hayden right after the show.
Dan's going to come for your throat.
Well, let's move on.
That's a snap.
LGBTQ plus flash news. San Francisco's queer police blast pride parade over total uniform ban. LGBTQ plus police and sheriff's deputies are asking the San Francisco Pride Parade to change its new policy that prohibits them from marching in the parade in uniform. The San Francisco Lesbian, Gay, Bisexual, Transgender Pride Celebration Committee banned officers from marching in uniform in the summer of 2020, though that ban only covered the 2021 parade, which did not occur due to the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic. The San Francisco Police Officers Pride Alliance, which represents LGBTQ plus officers in the San Francisco Police Department, issued a joint statement with the LGBTQ plus sheriff's deputies and firefighters, blasting the ban on the marching in uniform ordinance. In yesterday's press release, they state, quote, "The San Francisco Pride Committee has asked the LGBTQ plus peace officers to go back into the closet. That is the reason many of us took this job. The board decided to punish LGBTQ plus peace officers for the failings of others. This is its own form of prejudice and further erodes the tenuous relationship between peace officers and the communities we keep safe. This decision ignored the history and accomplishments of LGBTQ plus peace officers who made the SFPD and the SFSO more inclusive through their bravery and visibility. These officers have saved lives, made the city safer, and helped establish that in San Francisco, a member of the LGBTQ plus peace officer could serve the city in uniform with pride," end quote. While the San Francisco Fire Department is not banned from marching in uniform, the press release states firefighters will not be marching in solidarity with the Pride Alliance. The Pride Celebration Committee at the time of this news broadcast did not have any formal response to the statement. And I have to tell you, this seems to me to be an example of where sometimes in our own community we take things a step too far.
I mean, okay, I have a little bit of mixed emotions. As you all know, my parents are public servants, my mother, former police officer. So of course for me, I'm like, why not just let them walk? Like, I have pride in what my mother has done, what my godfather, former director, Robert Parker, may he rest in peace, what he did, and also many other members of my family. So I'm also just But at the same time, I see the side where there are some individuals in the LGBT community who they're not 100% on board with police in full uniform being there. I'm like, is there a compromise? Maybe just like shirts with the logo, a name, something that would still let them have the opportunity to be shown like, we are peace officers, we are part of the PD, and we are here to just show we care and we hear you, just something.
You know, last week, Broward Sheriff's Broward Sheriff's Office and Sheriff Tony held a town hall at the Pride Center, and they have created a community response organization, an all LGBT panel to make sure that our voices are being heard and not overlooked, not neglected. And so I'm glad that Stonewall Pride has not followed suit, because local law enforcement, or all law enforcement, has a fraught relationship and checkered history with the LGBT community. But BSO and certainly Wilton Manors Police Department are making strides and making genuine efforts, in my opinion, to get over it. Or get past it. I'm sorry, get past it.
There you go.
The Bay Area Reporter has also reported that San Francisco Mayor London Breed is also skipping the Pride Parade in solidarity.
Well, I think the reason that the firemen are allowed to go in uniform, because have you seen the calendar?
Ooh.
And the policemen, there'll be plenty of people in uniform at the parade in San Francisco, that you can be sure of. So, anyway, moving on. Flash news headline: LGBTQ plus history made as Church of Scotland approves same-sex marriage. This week, the 2022 General Assembly of the Church of Scotland, same-sex marriage within the church was approved by 274 votes to 136. While no person would be required to be involved in marrying a same-sex couple if they don't want to, the church law has now been changed to enable church ministers and deacons to authorize celebrants to conduct same-sex weddings. Reverend Craig Dobney told the Evening Standard, quote, "I've seen the heartbreak of those in same-sex relationships in our congregations who are unable to marry in their home church. Devout Christians, though they are, to be married in front of their church families would mean everything to them, but they were not able to do so," end quote. Same-sex marriage in Scotland has been legal since December 2014, as it has been in the rest of Great Britain. However, weddings by the Church of Scotland have not been allowed until now. Politicians, church leaders, and the LGBTQ plus community in Scotland praise the church for this step, with Ruth Davidson, former leader of the Scottish Conservative Party and an openly gay woman, saying she was delighted by the decision. Former Scottish Labour leader Keza Dugdale added that the decision was, quote, "tremendous news and progress," end quote. I think it's a great big deal that the church is allowing same-sex marriage within the Church of Scotland.
And whether you embrace gay marriage or not, it's really not the point of this story. The number one harm to the LGBTQ community all over the world is religion. And the more churches and the more religious sects that embrace the LGBTQ community, the better it gets for all of us.
I think this is, of course, amazing news. It's just one of many things to come out of what needs to be done for the LGBT community to further support us. But I'm also thinking, you know what? Great spot for a destination wedding. I'm not gonna lie. First thing.
And to quote Mike Myers on Saturday Night Live, if it's not Scottish, it's crap.
So can you get like a tuxedo with a kilt?
Yes.
Is that possible?
Absolutely.
Ooh, I like the sound of that.
I like the breeze.
Oh, goodness. Well, everyone, that is today's news for the LGBTQ plus community on the world's first and only daily LGBTQ plus evening news show. Is our community important to you?
It is. So help us by liking and subscribing and ringing the bell for updates. Share the news with your friends and family.
I'm going to be John for a second. Post this broadcast in the many groups you are a member of. Tonight's stories about our community deserve the attention of your family and friends.
Well done.
Thank you.
Good voice.
That was shade.
I know.
Oh, I didn't feel shade.
Queer News Tonight is the only live LGBTQ plus digital television show in the world that is out of the closet and into the headlines. We need your support.
And if our community is to grow, we must tell our stories and bring them to the attention of the broader world. This is the only place in the world that tells these type of LGBTQ plus stories in motion and sound. That is the passion of the Happening Out Television Network and Queer News Tonight. I'm your anchor, Al Ferguson, and on behalf of these LGBTQ+ reporters, the anchors of Queer News Tonight, including Sobourney Barnes, Glen Weinzimer, John Hayden, and Gregg Shapiro, we will see you daily at 8 p.m. Good night.
Good night.
LGBTQ+ news is vital for our community and for the broader world as a whole. We have enough enemies at Fox News. Tucker, Sean, and Laura are loud. We need passionate allies. Happening Out Television Network, Queer News Tonight, and It's Happening Out are literally out of the closet and into the headlines. Our community needs your support. Like this broadcast and subscribe now to